Iran tensions. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov today in Russia. This is the Pentagon is reportedly ready to deploy 120,000 troops to the Middle East. President Trump issuing a stern warning yesterday. Watch.
We'll see what happens. It's going to be a bad problem for Iran if something happens, I can tell you that. They're not going to be happy. They are not going to be happy people. Okay? You can figure it out yourself. They know what I mean by it.
The president's comments follow the sabotage of 4 Saudi Arabian oil tankers. U.S. military officials say that Iran is likely behind this attack, according to the Wall Street Journal. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired General Jack Keane. Sir, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, good morning, Maria.
Your take on the sabotaging of these ships, as well as now the Journal reporting that Iran is behind this. How do you see it?
Well, first of all, that's something that's unusual. That hasn't happened in quite some time. Last year, 2 ships were hit by the Iranian proxies, the Houthis, south of Yemen, in the Red Sea. And then before that, it was 2010, Al-Qaeda against a Japanese ship. And I think the fact that the Iranians did not announce their involvement, let's assume that they have been involved, I think leads us to the conclusion, because the United States has made a policy statement that is different from the past. They said, we are going to hold you, Iran, accountable for anything that your proxies do. We are going to react to you, not just to the proxies. That is a very different policy statement. So we'll see what happens here. I do think the Iranians are not going to do something so provocative that would involve a major operational response by the United States.
So you don't believe it? You don't believe Iran was behind it?
No, I'm saying I think it's likely that they are.
Okay.
But I think that they're keeping it under wraps, quite unusual for them, because they don't want a response from the United States that's so consequential to them.
What is the message Pompeo is bringing today to Russia? He's meeting with Vladimir Putin. What are you expecting that conversation to be? Clearly, it is involving Iran as well.
Yeah, well, you got to see what he's dealing with. I mean, Putin, in the 20 years that he's been in power, has managed to put Russia back on the world stage as a global power, and literally consistently pushing against what Putin perceives as the American hegemon in the world. And he has increased his sphere of influence quite dramatically in Eastern Europe, in the Middle East, in South Asia, in Latin and South America, in Africa, and also in the Arctic. So that's the backdrop to these discussions. On the top of the list, because I noticed for a fact, the president has told his national security team, I really would like to start talking to Russia about disarmament, not just over intermediate tactical weapons, that the treaty that we're pulling out of, but he also wants to talk to them about the START treaty. And he doesn't like the idea that possibly we're entering into a nuclear arms race. Everybody's refreshing their weapons and trying to increase capability. So that's number one. Number two, he's going to talk to them about Iran and what is happening there, because Iran and Russia are in a political and military alliance. And believe me, he's going to hammer him on Venezuela. And the fact that the Russians are in there propping up Maduro, and they've got advisors very close to Maduro, and I believe they're calling the shots.
I mean, Maduro was supposed to leave, and the word was that Russia stopped him from actually leaving. So, yeah, you're right. They're inserting themselves there as well. Then there's the border crisis, General. Former DHS officials apparently were ousted for pushing back on the Trump administration's plan to arrest thousands of migrants. This is Texas border agents say that 5,500 migrants are illegally entering the U.S. every day. Federal authorities are making arrests for alleged immigration scams that include fake marriages and fake families, and I saw it for myself. The mayor of El Paso told me kids from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala are being rented to cross the border. Watch this. There are sick children. I mean, the children are being put into very dangerous situations.
And in some cases, they're informing me that we may have, I don't know how to phrase it, rental children, so to speak, that they're not necessarily the actual families, that they're bringing these children in. So there's human trafficking. There are some real serious issues that Congress needs to address.
General, what's your reaction to this? What we saw at the border was just incredible in terms of people crossing in a very much an autopilot way continually, and the kids being put in such terrible positions.
There's no country in the world that can possibly have a situation what we're having and not call it a sovereignty issue and a crisis. It absolutely is. And because of the suffering that the people are going through and the number of children involved, it's also a humanitarian crisis. The primary solution to this, and you're well versed in this, Maria, because you've exposed it over and over again, is legislative. And hopefully, Lindsey Graham will follow up with what he said he was going to do to introduce legislation that possibly will get bipartisan support to begin to solve this problem. And we can solve this problem, but it's going to take legislation to do it.
Right. Senator Graham joined me on Sunday, broke news with us that he's going to be dropping a bill tomorrow, Wednesday, that he believes will address these loopholes. So we'll see what that legislation looks like. General, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, good talking to you, Maria.
General Jack Keane joining us there in Washington.